What if your morning cup of coffee came with a hidden cost? One paid in exploited labor, destroyed forests, and climate risks. Today on the Global Development Review, we are asking, are we really drinking guilt-free coffee? Welcome to the Global Development Review, the show where we dig into the stories, structure, and struggles shaping our interconnected world. Today, we are talking about something so many of us take for granted, which is our daily cup of coffee. But behind the cup lies a global industry tied to exploitation, environmental harm, and deep inequalities. The question is, are we really drinking guilt free coffee? To help us unpack this question, I'm joined by Etelle Higonnet. Atil is the founder and director of Coffee Watch, a graduate of Yale Law School. She is an attorney and environmental and human rights activist. She previously worked as Mighty Earth, National Wildlife Federation, Greenpeace, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch, as well as two war crime courts. She was knighted as Knight of the National Order of Merit in her home country of France for her pioneering efforts to curb deforestation in highly risked communities with an emphasis on rubber, palm oil, cocoa, cattle, and soy industries. She has worked in over 30 countries, is widely published, speaks 9 languages, and is now dedicated to trying to end deforestation and slavery in the global coffee industry. I welcome Atil and I hope you enjoy this conversation. So coffee is such a big part of our daily life for millions of us around the world, and it's how many people start their day, and it's part of a culture and community, and also for professional engagement nowadays.
Yeah,
So
you meet people for coffees, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know if it's like that for you, but I literally cannot start my day without coffee. My husband makes me a little latte with oat milk every morning, and I call him my coffee angel because without a coffee, my brain cannot function. I bump into things, I forget everything. I can't
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I'm ready for school. Like it's just not possible.
Yes, it's same for most of us. I mean, yeah. Just to begin our conversation, I'm just wondering, like, could you please paint us a picture of what the journey this coffee looks like from farm to the our cup?
We start our day, many of us, with this delicious mug of steaming wonder
Yeah.
that's able to somehow warm us up, get our brain functioning. It's this magic thing, right? That many of us rely on to start our day and to share special moments where we catch up with friends and colleagues. But behind every cup is a journey, and a lot of that journey is really bitter and dark. So let's just map it out for your listeners. Okay, coffee comes from a berry. The berry grows on these little bushes. I mean, the bushes can even be quite tall, probably as tall as you or even a little taller, huh? But they're these bushes that grow mostly in the tropics. And you have two kinds of coffee, Robusta and Arabica. Robusta is a little more hardy and it's kind of made for full sun monoculture. And Arabica is more sensitive, I guess you could say, and is more also tasty. Often a lot of people say it's more delicious, and it tends to be grown in more agroforestry shade-grown systems. Those monoculture systems are really bad compared to the agriculture that's called shade-grown or agroforestry. Probably, we think there's about 7 to 8 times more carbon in an agroforestry system, give or take, and maybe 18 times more biodiversity, 19 times more biodiversity. So, there's a huge difference between the monoculture and the Arabica. So, your coffee may have started by healing the planet with biodiversity and lots of homes for birds and bats and butterflies and other bugs and things, or your coffee may have started its journey by creating like a biodiversity desert with almost no carbon, sort of destroying life. But then it gets worse, right? Because coffee is the number 6 driver of deforestation in the world. There's a good chance the coffee cup that you're holding in your hand started with killing a forest.
Wow.
That's pretty grim, right? And we know forests are quote unquote like the lungs of the planet. and that they don't need us, but we need them. We want to keep breathing and being in a habitable planet. We really need those forests, so it's not such a good idea to cut them all down. They're kind of our life support system, you know? And then it gets even worse, Jeffer, because not only is there a pretty strong chance your coffee killed a lot of biodiversity with pesticides of monoculture and killed forests when it was planted, instead of being grown on degraded lands or grown in an agroforestry system, under the canopy. If it was done badly with deforestation, that's a real tragedy. But even worse, maybe, there's a pretty big chance our coffee started out with slavery, child labor, and extreme poverty. There are thousands of slaves and millions of kids, and almost all coffee workers are in poverty. So that's a pretty bad beginning, right? And it doesn't have to be that way, right? Coffee can be a dignity price that's giving farmers a living income and sending kids to school and promoting human rights and local empowerment. And with biodiversity and shade grown, delightful agroforestry. So we can choose a better origin story than that bitter, dark story. And yeah, it goes through a lot of hands. People who have warehouses, they accumulate it in big bags that goes on trucks, bigger warehouses in the ports, that it goes on ships with these exporters, put it on big ships, cargo ships, and importers will import it into the consumer countries in these giant ports like Rotterdam and Hamburg and stuff, and Philadelphia in the US. And yeah, so in these giant ports, the importers bring it on shore to big warehouses, and then it gets roasted, and then it gets put into pods or instant or bags, and that's how it winds up in your hands.
We often don't think about the process, and you are also touching a very important aspect of production of coffee, which you talked about the child labor and other forms of exploitation. A lot of us think that we are doing the right thing when we buy coffee that is labeled as a fair trade or organic. As a conscious consumer or person with a little knowledge about issues related to labor rights and exploitation, but behind those labels, actually, like fair trade or organic, many farmers are struggling, as you already mentioned. So, do you think like the system fails somewhere?
The system's absolutely failing. If we accept that almost no coffee farmers are earning a living income and basically no farm workers, then that's an outrage. That's an outrage that there are 25 million coffee farmers and 100 million farm workers. They are not earning a living income. A living income is exactly what it sounds like. It is what you can live on. It's not a dignity income or a wealth income or a progress development income. It's a living income. It's exactly what it sounds like. It means you have enough food to live on, you have basic medical care, you can send your kids to school. If you are not earning that, that is an outrage, an effing outrage. Excuse my language. It's just not okay. And what you talked about with human trafficking, India has a lot of coffee, right? My understanding is that there's about 200,000 people who work on Kodagu's plantations. Kodagu is like the sort of beating heart of India's coffee region. And they produce like well over 100,000 metric tons of coffee a year, which is a third of India's coffee. And some coffee estates there are a vicious den of debt bondage. I mean, there are thousands of people who've been rescued from slavery in Brazil. So India is not alone, right? We know that coffee slavery in Brazil is a huge problem too. But the mere fact that it's an enormous problem in Brazil and also India, what does that tell us? It's a global problem of debt bondage and modern slavery and forced labor. This is not okay. We should be outraged. And I think the reason the system is failing us is because there hasn't been enough attention, right? Like in India, there's a fantastic documentary that was made that's called Cork's Bitter Brew about bonded labor in Indian coffee. And there's a Guardian journalist, this amazing journalist, Saurav Kumar, who did a Guardian deep expose on debt bondage in coffee. And there are great people, activists who work on this. Like in India, you have the AHSS, which is a wonderful organization, the Adivasi Hagugala Samiti organization. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. In Brazil, you have Adere. There are wonderful local organizations, but these people do not get enough money. They do not get enough attention. And the global coffee industry is just turning a blind eye. And so are the certification schemes. There's not a single certification scheme that pays a living income price. Why is that?
How do fair trade and organic labels work for coffee companies?
That's a great question. I mean, half of global coffee is certified, but there's a bunch of different certifications, right? I think the biggest one is 4C, which is a lot of that is for Nestle. I'm not sure, but we think maybe 83% of 4C certified coffee goes to Nestle. So not all, but a lot. Then there's another really big certification called Rainforest Alliance. It got very, very big when it fused with UTZ. And then there's also Fairtrade is pretty big, and organic is pretty big, and Starbucks is like 3% of global coffee, more or less, and they have their own certification scheme called Cafe Practices. So, okay, we have 4C, Rainforest Alliance, Fairtrade, Organic, and Cafe Practices. And there's a couple others like B Corp that are smaller. But please explain to me like I'm a 2-year-old, because I do not understand. Why do those certification schemes not pay a living wage to the farm workers? Why are they not paying a living income price to the smallholder farmers? Why are they not all organic? Like organic is chemical free. Why are the others not chemical free? What are they doing? What are they doing? I think this is crazy, but maybe I'm getting it wrong. Like, please explain to me how it is possible that these certification schemes are not giving us sustainable, ethical coffee with farmers that live in dignity and send their kids to school, and they can get medicine if they have cancer, and they can afford a house, and they can do shade-grown agroforestry that's regenerative, that's beautiful, that heals the earth and sequesters lots of carbon and provides a home for birds and bats and butterflies and other creatures. Small taxa. I just don't understand. Why are we doing this bad coffee? We don't have to. It's crazy.
We hear a lot about deforestation, pesticides, and other environmental harms tied to coffee farming. Uh, do you see this more as a problem driven by consumer demands in Western countries or by the lack of strong regulations and accountability in producing regions?
I think it's both. I think we all have a fair amount of responsibility for this, right? I mean, the consumer countries, literally, for the most part, do not have laws against importing coffee that has deforestation and horrible abuses in it. Like, I know that sounds not possible, but let me explain, okay? So, in the United States, there's a bill that's been proposed that would say if it was passed, this got bipartisan support in the US House and Senate, and if it was passed, it would bar the US from importing high-risk commodities that are grown with illegal deforestation. That bill is not passed, though. So if you, Jaffer, wanted to import a huge amount of coffee that was all grown with deforestation, some of which was illegal, like, you can do that, and there's nothing I can do to stop you. Nothing. That seems really wrong to me and like a big gap in the law. And I should add the coffee is not even included in the Forest Act. The Forest Act covers like palm oil, cocoa, rubber, soy, but it does not include coffee. So that's very sad. So even if it passed, it wouldn't fix the coffee problem. But in Europe, we have this bill that's called actually a law that's called the European Deforestation Regulation that was passed, but it keeps getting delayed. It was delayed by a year. It should have already been the law of the land in Europe this year. It's not, because there was so much pushback from companies, from producer governments, and the European Union just could not be courageous, and they folded like a sheet. And so here we are waiting, and we're not even sure that it's gonna go ahead because there's now more talk of delaying it again, which is just disgusting and horrible. So to this day, if Jaffer, you wanted to bring coffee with deforestation into Europe, I can't stop you. I cannot stop you from doing that. And now let's talk about like slavery and child labor. There's pretty much nothing I can do to stop you from bringing coffee into the EU or UK if it has slaves and kids. Can you believe that? And trust me, I've literally called all these lawyers. I'm a lawyer. I went to Yale Law School. It's widely considered the best law school in America. I've thought about this really hard. A lot of coffee is traded in Switzerland. Half of global coffee is traded in the Swiss canton of Vaud. I asked lots of Swiss lawyers, how can we approach this to get legal accountability? These companies have slaves, they have kids, they have forced labor. This is insane. This is wrong. It cannot. And they, on the lawyer side, there's nothing you can do. Basically, there's no way for you to go to court, or for these kids and slaves to go to court and get justice in Switzerland. Literally nothing. In the US, we luckily have one law called the TVPRA, Trafficking Victims Protection Act, Reauthorization Act. So actually, there is a law firm that has now brought a trafficking case, a human trafficking case against Starbucks in the US for their coffee. That happened this year. We supported that case with data and expertise. And Coffee Watch, the organization I founded and run, we filed a petition with US Customs because it turns out US Customs has the power to block coffee imports if they were connected to slave labor or forced labor. So we've asked the US Customs, the US authorities, to block coffee going into the US from Brazil that belongs to McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, Nestle, Starbucks, Illy, and JDE. So we are using the laws that are available to us, but they are so few. And that's nuts, right? That's not right. But you asked about what the producer countries can do. I mean, producer countries could enforce their own laws, right? Why are they not enforcing their own laws? Slavery and child labor are illegal in most places. And so is rape. We know that there's rape and sexual violence against women coffee workers. That's not legal. But the governments in producing countries are not enforcing it.
Big brands and trading companies seem to capture most of the profits, while small farmers often cannot make a living wage. How does this imbalance of power shape both working conditions and environmental footprint of coffee production?
But Joffrey, you talked about something that is so close to my heart, this question of who gets the profit.
Yeah.
And I think we have to pause there and unpack that because what you alluded to is so important, Jaffer. Here's an example. If you're in New York, on average, you'd pay around $3.12 for a cup of coffee, just regular coffee, not a fancy latte with pumpkin spice, just a regular small cup of coffee in a deli. Do you want to know how much a coffee farmer would get? Literally just a few cents. Just a few cents.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where does the money go is a really good question. If we break it down in percentages, let's say you're going and you're buying a latte in a cafe. 0.4% of the money you pay will go to the coffee farmer. 0.4%.
Wow, that's
Right? And 4% of that cup is for coffee. But they're getting so little of the money. The money goes to traders, the money goes to roasters, the money goes to supermarkets or coffee shops or restaurants. Yeah, and 4% will go for milk, and 7% will go for cups and napkins, and 25% is profit and tax, and 60% is like the shop cost and the rent and the staff of the cafe. But let's just focus on the most important number. In your little latte that you just went and bought in a coffee shop, 0.4% of the money you paid for your cup goes to coffee farmers. You tell me, is that right? That's not right. I just don't think that's okay. And by the way, the countries that grow the coffee also deserve money, right? Like most coffee grows in Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Indonesia, Uganda, Ethiopia, Honduras, these like countries in the tropics, right? But they get so little money from coffee. Basically, there's two big problems. One is that the industry has set up this, I don't think we can say tax evasion, but tax dodging, right? Right. Like, let's say Jaffer is running a coffee company. Chances are your coffee is being traded in Switzerland, in the canton of Vaud. That's 50% of global coffee is traded there. And chances are you're paying taxes in Switzerland, very little, instead of paying proper taxes in India or Brazil or Vietnam or Colombia or Indonesia or whatever. And the Swiss government has basically set up this disgusting scheme that enriches an already very rich country. It's one of the richest countries in the world at the expense of really impoverished and developing nations where the coffee is grown. There is no coffee grown in Switzerland. There's like not a single coffee plant that you can grow in the Alps. It just doesn't work. And not only that, there's like relatively little consumption in Switzerland. It makes no sense that Switzerland should be basically stealing tax revenue is what I think it comes down to from the global south. So there's this tax evasion problem, or I think we should say tax dodging to be more accurate, but also tariffs. A lot of the global north has pretty bad unfair tariffs. And essentially, if I was like Indonesia and I want to sell my coffee to the US or the UK or Europe or Japan or Korea or whatever, if I want to sell green beans, sure, you guys will take my beans with a very low or no tariff. But the second that I try to make instant or pods or roasted coffee, forget it. You tariff the hell out of me. So what does that mean? That means as a country, I have this huge block to doing transformation and having factories where the value add is. That's where the value add. The value add is in pods. It's in roasted. It's in decaf. It's in instant. The value add is not in green beans. I just think the global tariff and the global tax systems are screwing over the developing nations where coffee is grown.
Many people want to be conscious consumer, choosing fair trade, shade grown or ethical coffee. But how much difference can individual choices really make? Do we need bigger structural changes in the trade policy and corporate practice for things to truly shift? What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, Jaffer, never doubt in the immense, beautiful power that we have as individuals. Really, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's not like, I'm just saying this to make people feel better. In fact, as you know, I don't sugarcoat things very much. I've just spent like a half hour telling you about slavery, deforestation, child labor, poverty, exploitation, tax dodging. I'm not one to sugarcoat, but I truly believe we can change this. It does not have to be this way. And the reason I created Coffee Watch, after having worked for many years at Human Rights Watch and Amnesty and Greenpeace and Mighty Earth, is that I believe truly we can change the coffee industry. I am in it to win it. And the more people help me and people like me to change the coffee industry, the more likely we are to transform this industry. We could absolutely make the world a better place with every cup. You know, just the way there's poverty coffee, there's also dignity coffee. There's indigenous people are getting screwed over coffee, but there's also indigenous owned coffee companies. We do have rape and SGBV coffee, but there's also women owned companies that do women's empowerment with every cup, with every bag, with every harvest. And okay, it's true, there's a lot of poison coffee out there, but there's also organic and coffee that's chemical free. And monoculture coffee is terrible, as we established already, but we know that shade grown coffee works. And it's not just a small, like, moo wearing hippy dippy, micro part of the coffee industry that does shade grown. No, it's like 20% of the coffee industry probably has shade grown. So we know there are solutions that can work at scale. You can, as a consumer, you can vote with your wallet and buy from the heart. Just set aside 1 hour and do research wherever you are in the world. If you're in India, if you're in The Hague, if you're in Denmark or the UK or, the US or wherever, Costa Rica, there's 100% guarantee at least one good, ethical, sustainable coffee company close to where you live. So research it, spend that 1 hour of your life, and then just order. Create like a regular order where you just get a delivery every month, or you go and you shop there every month and you stock up so that most of the time the coffee you consume matches your deep ethical values, right? And you can even buy extra and give it to people for their birthdays, or if you go over to somebody's house for brunch or dinner or whatever, or a big festival or a holiday. Christmas, Hanukkah, Eid, whatever. People love coffee. It's a great house present. And you can tell people, I brought you this coffee because I love you and I love the planet. And this is planet saving coffee. So I think never doubt your beautiful, fantastic power. You can buy from the heart. We have this page on our website where I put every single good thing you can do. Like, how do you buy a more responsible coffee? It's all explained there. All the petitions you can sign. I curated with my team. We found all the petitions everyone's created for better coffee. You can just sign them. Boop, 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 boop. Just sign, sign, sign. That makes a big difference. We put all the films that you can screen with your friends and family. So you can like become an ambassador for the truth about coffee if you host screenings. Those films are just, like, free. They're made by other people, but we think they're amazing, and so we put them all in one place to make it easy for folks. So if you just go to coffeewatch.org, all the actions you can take, they're all in one place to make it easy for you under actions. And those actions, they really make a difference. Like, trust me, they do. As I'm a professional activist, having thousands or even hundreds of people take those actions, it is fantastic.
Can you share a bit about your organization, Coffee Watch, and do you have like what kind of research or publication resources or um, advocacy material do you have on your website, and how people can use it actually?
So basically, if people go online, they can find our website very easily. It's just coffeewatch.org. And if you click on coffeewatch.org and you go to the bottom of our website, you can find us on all of the social media platforms. It's all together. There's little buttons you can click to get Coffee Watch Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Blue Sky, whatever it is that you're on. We're on it too. And also, you can sign up for our newsletter down there. We try on our social media to really keep people updated what is going wrong in the coffee industry and what is going right. And every time there's a new cool thing that people can do to make coffee better, we post about that. And every time there's a new revelation about slavery or forced labor or poverty, we try to post that as well so that you can really stay informed about problems and solutions. And yeah, on our website, we have only been up and running for a year. I founded Coffee Watch, actually not even a year ago. I founded Coffee Watch like 10 months ago, but we already have done 6 reports. So you can read our reports. We had undercover teams with these wonderful sister NGOs. They went to discover abuses in the coffee supply chains of China, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil. We revealed the harmful lobbying that the coffee industry was doing to try to destroy a beautiful law called the European Deforestation Regulation, EUDR, that we talked about earlier on this podcast. We published a report about the terrible racist colonialist global north tariffs on coffee and how they're kind of destroying global south's ability to transform coffee at home and get the value add there. So yeah, we publish a lot so you can read our reports.
I was also looking into the work of Coffee Watch, and I learned that you also did some advocacy work in the United States, and you filed some petition in some court, and your organization won that case.
We filed a really historic complaint with the U.S. Customs authorities in the U.S. That's called CBP. You can file something called a petition with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. We filed a 307 petition, which basically asks the U.S. government to block imports of coffee into the U.S. if it was tainted by forced labor or slavery, debt bondage, modern slavery. So yeah, we did that. That was really historic, I think. It was very hard, but it was worth it. And we helped provide evidence and information that was used by a law firm to file litigation for freed slaves, for these guys that were freed from coffee slavery in Brazil. They were also trafficked. They were victims of human trafficking as well as forced labor. And they brought a class action case using something called the TVPRA, um, which stands for the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act. So there is this litigation afoot to defend, yeah, victims of human trafficking and slavery and to block bad coffee. If we could crowdfund enough, we would have more money. We would bring more cases for accountability and to fight for the rights of slaves and kids and workers, but it's a work in progress. We're a brand new organization, so that's our litigation so far. Yeah.
With climate change threatening so many coffee growing regions, what would a fairer, more sustainable coffee industry actually look like? And what steps we would need to take to get there?
Yes, this is a vital question because scientists are telling us that half of global coffee will vanish because of climate change by 2050. The reason that is so is because coffee is a very finicky little plant. It's sensitive. It's very finicky and sensitive to heat domes and long droughts and the soil drying out and superstorms. Coffee just doesn't like any of that. It's very sensitive to it. And so we have a lot of crop failures when you have climate chaos, right? And we've already seen that climate chaos has already started. This is not into the future, right? This is already started. We already have crop failures, a lot in Brazil and Vietnam, everywhere. So much so that the crop failures have literally been historic to the point where they're driving up the price of coffee to historic highs. So what the scientists are telling us is gonna happen by 2050, this isn't like some far away fantasy. No, no, no. We are already starting to experience this. But there is a solution. Most of the scientists also tell us that if we wanna save most of the coffee that's on the chopping block, we have to transition to shade grown agroforestry coffee. Why? Because if you put lots of trees in and around the coffee, or you keep the trees and put in more trees, you can still have a very high yield, right? Even with like 40% shade, even more, you can have a very high yield of coffee. Especially if you do it strategically and scientifically in a good way, you can have the same yield or higher. But lots of trees, what do they do when it's a superstorm and very wet? They will suck up the water like a sponge so that the coffee isn't drowning. Then they will keep and store the moisture in the soil for when it's dry. When it's too cold, they will warm up the air. This is especially important on mountains, when you grow coffee at high altitude. But also, coffee doesn't like hot as well as cold extremes. When you have lots of trees, they don't just keep the coffee warmer when it's cold. Trees will keep the coffee cooler when it's hot. Basically, trees protect coffee from extreme cold, extreme heat, extreme dryness, extreme wetness. The trees are like babysitters for these little babies of coffee, if that makes sense. They protect coffee. So if we massively change coffee from pesticide-soaked monoculture to regenerative agroforestry, we can save a lot of global coffee. And that means not just your cup and my cup, it also means we can save farmers from bankruptcy. If you're in a democracy, you have this beautiful gift that you can write to your representative. You can tweet at them, you can post on their Facebook, you can write to your parliamentarian or your congressperson or senator or president or prime minister, and you can say, I'm really pissed off about this coffee situation. What are you doing? And literally, your elected representatives care about that. They count how many people send this kind of message, and they care a lot. They care even more if you write a letter than if you write an email or post on social media, and they care even more if you go in person or if you make a phone call. But all of those messages are powerful and good. You can sign a petition. We put all the coffee petitions on our website in an easy one-stop shop, so you can go boop, 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 and just sign them. But besides buying from the heart and gifting good coffee and signing petitions and writing your elected representatives, you can go on social media. You can complain directly to the companies. If you drink Lavazza or Dunkin' Donuts or an espresso or whatever it is, you can go onto the social media of your company of choice and message them and say, I care about sustainability. What are you doing to make this problems better? And the same, if you have a coffee shop that you love, you can go talk to your favorite barista at the favorite coffee shop or restaurant that you go to. If you're a student at a university, you can ask the university to change the coffee that's served in your dining halls. If you're in an office, you can literally try to change the coffee that your entire office serves. That makes a really big difference. We have a little page on our website where there's all these different ideas of things you can do. And you shouldn't feel bad about not doing all of them. I'm not even doing all of them. Just choose whatever is best for you. If you have a really good relationship with a barista in your favorite cafe, talk to them. But if your brother-in-law runs a restaurant, talk to your brother-in-law. But if you are running the dining hall at a university, that's what you can do. There's different things that each of us can do. All of it is beautiful. All of it is important. Don't beat yourself up for not being perfect, but just try to do your best.